SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder.
Good morning. We are going to call House Ag and Natural Resources Committee to order. I want to welcome everybody that's here in the room and everyone listening. Gentlemen, remove your hats, turn your phones to silent. Remind myself this. And with that, I'm going to ask Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Representative Goodwin.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Ismay.
Here.
Ladner.
Here.
May. Excused. Knowles.
Here.
Peterson. Excused. Rice.
Here.
Schubeck.
Here.
Van Dypen.
Here.
Whitman. Excused. Gosh.
Here.
Overwig.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Okay. Now, the chair will hear motions of, I'm sure you all read the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move the minutes Last meeting.
Okay, it has been moved by Representative Gosh, seconded by Representative Hunt to approve the minutes last meeting. All those in favor, will you say aye? Aye. Opposed? We are approved. Remind testifiers to sign in the back. Ensure lobbyists you're wearing your badges. Testifiers, if you have handouts, please give them to our pages and let them do it for you. And with that, pages, would you like to come up? Tell us where you're from, introduce yourselves, tell us where you're going.
My name is Macy Duffy. I'm from Rapid City. I go to Central, and I want to go to a four-year institute to study business sustainability.
Awesome. This guy's been here a lot. That's good, though.
Ben Wangsness, Miller, South Dakota. I'm going to Harvard for aerospace engineering.
Oh, yeah. Hey, he's changing. He's changing up. We must have been a good, we must rub off on you pretty good. You're going up on your standards. Okay, other introductions. Stavish has an introduction for the committee. Why don't you come up and introduce your gentleman there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Liv Stavik, Executive Director and Registered Lobbyist for the South Dakota Agribusiness Association. Today, I have my board of directors here with me. We have a meeting later today and then hopefully engaging with policymakers throughout the course of the morning, but appreciate the opportunity to recognize them. They are folks in the ag retail, grain elevator, crop protection, seed, fertilizer, you name it, industry. And every issue that has brought me to this podium is based on a policy that this group passed. So board members, please stand up and be recognized. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. I always say feed dealers are some of the nicest people in the whole world, right? Okay, any other introductions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we're going to get to work. We have 3 bills. We're going to mix them up here a little bit this morning. LRC is working on something for one of them. So we're going to start with SB 40, revise the compliance requirements for limitations on foreign ownership of agricultural land. Is there any proponent testimony? Welcome, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Hunter Roberts for the Department of Ag and Natural Resources. I rise in front of you today in support of Senate Bill 40, an act to revise the compliance requirements for limitations on foreign ownership of ag land. I would say this is a cleanup from what happened, you all passed a few years ago. Very simple. Section 1 just kind of clarifies clarifies that inheritance must divest violating interest within 3 years, establishes that minority foreign ownership acquired by inheritance violates the statute subject to forfeiture, and then the second section provides, I would say kind of a friendly change here, provides equity owners the first right of purchase forfeited land at fair market value, allows the AG to set that at twice the assessed value or an appraised number. And then the third section introduces a civil penalty for up to 10% of fair market value for failure to report transactions under the U.S. Agriculture Foreign Investment Disclosure Act to DANR. That's in our current statute, but there's no teeth to it. So we have seen a couple of those that filed their federal AFIDA but didn't file in South Dakota. So we'd like to put that 10% fine in there, up to 10% fine in there. If they don't, that number's kind of all over the board. You look at different states. I know Arkansas is 50%. I think 10% seems fair and reasonable and a good way to incentivize or make sure that those foreign entities do report through the South Dakota project. The reason we have that AFIDA reporting requirement is the federal AFIDA process is quite slow. I mean, we usually get them 20 months, 18 to 24 months later after they've been filed. So we like to kind of move that up, and if the state gets that directly when they're filing their federal AFIDA, it just moves up our timeline to look at what actions we may or may not need to do. So with that, I think this proposal is very clear, streamlined effort to clean up our statutes, and would encourage you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Further proponent testimony on Senate Bill 40. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jasper Deagle, and I'm a registered lobbyist with the South Dakota Stock Growers. We are just here to echo a Me Too. We agree with this cleanup language and ask for your favorable support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 40. Did we have anything online? Nothing? Okay. Then with that, we'll hear opponent testimony to Senate Bill 40. Opponent testimony. You almost scared me, Miss Eilers. I was wondering what's going on, but you're good. You're good. Okay. Any opponent testimony? Seeing none, I guess you don't really need a rebuttal. So with that, we'll move into committee questions. Okay. Wow. Okay. Then we're going to close public testimony, and we're going to go to committee actions or discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Gosh.
Move to pass.
Okay, it has been moved by Representative Gosh, seconded by Representative Ladner to do pass on Senate Bill 40. Comments on your motion?
No, sir.
No comments? Okay, with that, we have a motion to do pass. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Representative Goodwin. Excused. Hunt.
Here. Or, hey, yeah, yes, aye.
Ismay.
Aye.
Ladner.
Aye.
May, excused. Knowles.
Aye.
Peterson, excused. Rice.
Aye.
Schubeck.
Aye.
Van Dypen.
Aye.
Whitman, excused. Gosh.
Aye.
Overwig.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, we have 9 yeas and 4 excused.
Okay, receiving the amount of votes it needed, Senate Bill 40 will go to the House floor with a do pass recommendation. Now let's move on. We're going to go to Senate Bill 124, temporarily prohibit the manufacture, sale, and distribution of any product containing cell-cultured protein and to provide a penalty therefor. Any proponent testimony? Welcome, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. It's good to be back here after my 2 years here a couple years ago. John Sharda, District 2 Representative. I thought it was going to be your last bill for the year, but I got changed up a little bit. So you have one more after me, I guess. So anyway, Mr. Chair, members of the Ag Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of SB 124, an act to temporarily prohibit the manufacture, sale, and distribution of any product containing cell-cultured protein in South Dakota. We were in this room talking about cell-cultured meat earlier this year. Based on that conversation, I think we can all agree this is not a food we choose to consume, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about the safety and pushing the pause button on this product, not a permanent ban. This is a 5-year pause that gives us more time to determine if this product is safe for South Dakotan residents. First, SB 124 protects public health by recognizing that cell-cultured protein is still a very new, rapidly changing technology. Only a handful of companies have ever brought cultivated protein to the market in the United States, and the long-term health and safety implications of widespread consumption are not yet well understood outside of controlled, small-scale environments. We rightly demand rigorous, transparent evidence for the food we put on our families' tables. SB 124 ensures South Dakotans are not the test case, while science, regulation, litigation in other states are still evolving. Second, this bill gives us time to evaluate the legal and constitutional landscape before we invite costly lawsuits. Other states that have moved quickly on cultivated meat bans are already involved in litigation over Interstate Commerce Clause, federal preemption, and protectionist claims. With judges allowing these challenges to move forward, SB 124's temporary prohibition, structured as a defined time period from July 1, 2026 through June 30, 2031, allows South Dakota to watch those cases play out and learn from them instead of paying to be the next test case in federal court. Third, SB 124 stands up for our state's #1 industry, agriculture. By refusing to let an unproven lab-based competitor quietly establish a foothold in our marketplace before we understand its full consequences, South Dakota's cattle producers and livestock groups have consistently emphasized that they are not afraid of fair competition, but that they are rightly concerned when new products trade on the good name and reputation that generations of producers have built. A temporary prohibition gives us time to tighten definitions and address labeling. Importantly, SB 124 reflects a balanced approach that fits South Dakota's values. cautious, conservative, and rooted in respect for both markets and the rule of law. This is not a permanent blanket ban on future innovation. It is a clear statement that until the legal, scientific, and regulatory dust settles, we will not allow our state to be flooded with a product that raises unanswered questions about safety, labeling, and economic impact. At the end of the moratorium period, this legislature, or a future one, can revisit the issue with better data, clearer court guidance, and real-world experience from other jurisdictions. Finally, SB 124 sends a strong, unified message to the people of South Dakota. We stand with the men and women who raise real beef, pork, and poultry, and we will not sacrifice their livelihoods or our customers' trust for a speculative product that is still working its way through the regulatory and legal process. In a world where many people are increasingly disconnected from their source of food, South Dakota can continue to be a place where food is raised on the land by families and neighbors we know and understand, we can see and verify. Members of the committee, SB 124 is a reasonable, time-limited safeguard that protects public health, shields taxpayers from avoidable litigation, and honors our commitment to agriculture while the rest of the country sorts out the future of cell-cultured protein. I respectfully ask you to give SB 124 a due pass recommendation, and I'll be happy to stand by for questions.
Thank you, Representative. Further proponent testimony on Senate Bill 124. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is John Katilnik. I'm Deputy General Counsel with the Governor's Office. Today I ask for your support on Senate Bill 124 in its current form, and I ask that you resist any amendments. In his veto message on House Bill 1077, the Governor recognized two important truths. South Dakota agricultural thrives in competitive marketplace, and government should be careful about permanently banning products that are lawful and federally regulated. While most of us may not personally choose these products, banning them outright raises serious constitutional concerns and creates significant risk of costly interstate commerce litigation. States retain constitutional authority to protect the health, welfare, and safety. Senate Bill 124 offers a more measured path that reflects this authority. A temporary 5-year moratorium allows time for additional study, data collection, and coordination within the existing federal framework. It also allows ongoing litigation in other states to unfold before we take further action that could expose our state to unnecessary legal challenges. We have worked closely with the sponsors of this bill and with the interested ag groups. The 5-year moratorium reflects a deliberate compromise, one reached after discussion, input, and careful consideration from those most directly affected. It balances the desire to take action with the responsibility to proceed in a legally sound and measured way. Proponents of a stricter law point to Nebraska, Montana, Texas, and Florida and argue that because they have enacted bans, we should simply follow their lead by extending the moratorium to 10 years. I wish practicing law was as simple as looking at what other states have done and copying it. It is not. Each state must assess its own legal posture, risk tolerance, and constitutional landscape. I cannot speak to the level of risk those states are willing to assume. My responsibility is to evaluate what is most legally sound for South Dakota, what gives us the strongest legal footing and minimizes our exposure to litigation. Just because a neighboring state chooses to take a more aggressive approach does not mean it is prudent for us to do the same. To put it simply, if my neighbor is driving 100 miles an hour and does not get caught, that does not make it wise or lawful for me to drive 100 miles an hour. The 5-year moratorium strikes the right balance. It demonstrates that we take this issue seriously while preserving strong constitutional defenses and limiting unnecessary legal risk. Extending the moratorium to 10 years shifts the posture of this bill in a way that will weaken our legal arguments and increase our exposure. Senate Bill 124's approach respects the constitutional limits, reduces litigation risk, and upholds South Dakota's longstanding commitment to free markets and limited government, while still addressing legitimate concerns in a reasonable and defensible manner. For these reasons, I ask for your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 124 in its current form, and I ask you resist any amendments. Thank you. I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony in SB 124. Welcome, Senator.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Senator Michaela Vojta from District 21 here to testify in support of this. As you've previously heard, this bill came about as a collaboration between multiple people and the governor's office after 1077 was vetoed. We still stand in full support of the bill that is before you today without amendments, and I would just urge the committee to do the same. Now, why is 124 necessary? Why do we need to do something? Well, here's why. I researched the FDA's cell culture consultation process, and you can go right on the FDA's website, and I just picked one. I think there's 4 of them there right now. One of them was from Mission Barns, and they do pork fat is their product. On page 4, the word proprietary was used twice in the very first paragraph. Reading further into the submission, there was words like self-fattening reagents, coating reagents, harvesting reagents, etc. You know, traditional beef must adhere to withdrawal periods for antibiotic safety, other medications and such, and that's been time tested. To prevent microbial contamination, this is coming from their cell culture consultation again. To prevent microbial contamination, antimicrobial reagents, including antibiotics and antifungals, are used during the cell banking process. None of this has been tested. None of that has a set time, and none of the human consumption aspect has been studied long term. And I just urge you to support this so that we have something in place for next year to protect the people of South Dakota. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Boy, now I ain't had breakfast. That sounded yummy. Further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 124. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Taya Runyon, registered lobbyist for the South Dakota Cattlemen's Association. Our free market and potential litigation concerns have largely been reduced by the compromise that was brokered between the sponsors of the bill and the governor's office that reduced the moratorium to 5 years. As Senate Bill 124 sits before you today, I fully anticipate that this will pass, and we do respect that compromise. And while we're not opposing Senate Bill 124, our members do want to bring to your attention how this bill impacts the integrity of our food safety system. We understand the proponents' desire to see additional study. However, any suggestion that our food safety system has put consumers at risk by approving these products does give us pause. And our hope is that in this moratorium, we can seek a better understanding of what the full regulatory oversight looks like and bring some confidence to folks. The proponents are 100% accurate in saying that the FDA approved cell culture protein for initial manufacture based on the company's research. The companies do submit that safety data, and then the FDA does their own scientific independent review and only issues those no further questions letters after that scientific review. So the FDA does not grant approval based just on the company's claims. When these products first sought approval at the federal level, we did oppose that. Despite our attempts, we were unable to stop them from being approved. However, what we did do is pivot and ensure that they were subject to the same strict inspection processes as our real products were subjected to. We continue to fight at a federal level for strong, clear labeling that's in line with what we secured last year for labeling and restrictions on spending state dollars for these products. I'm certainly not a scientist, and I'm not here to speak to these self-cultivated products, but rather to the federal regulation and inspection structure that over the last 7 years has been conducted through that joint regulatory agreement between FDA and USDA FSIS. The FDA oversees cell collection and growth, and then USDA FSIS inspects harvesting, processing, and labeling, similar to traditional proteins. These are all to ensure compliance with our food safety laws. South Dakota cattle producers and cattle producers around the world rely on our food safety laws so that consumers here and abroad know that American beef and pork and poultry are safe. And we must balance the need to be cautious when it comes to new and emerging products while not calling into question the established food safety system in regard to any one product and cast doubt on their credibility to regulate these products, because that could potentially cause fear and distrust among consumers for all the products that they regulate. So for those reasons, we do urge the committee to approve the moratorium as it is in the bill, and also rely on the established food safety systems, the state level state guards we put in place last year, and traditional marketing and education to protect consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Runyon. Further proponent testimony to SB 124. Welcome back.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Jasper Deagle, the South Dakota Stock Growers Association. We are here in support of Senate Bill 124 in its current form. And the reason that we are is because we were a part of the compromise with the veto of House Bill 1077. Although we were disappointed with the governor's decision to do that, we very much appreciate him bringing both the proponents and opponents to the table to discuss some type of compromise. We would like this to be passed because we understand without this we could lose everything and not have a moratorium at all. So we do ask very much for you to encourage or we ask very much for you to pass this and encourage this bill to stay in its current form. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 124. Welcome, sir.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mitch Richter, and I represent South Dakota Farmers Union. This bill ensures that emerging lab-grown protein products are not undercut or misrepresented in traditional livestock production without a full understanding of market impacts. We want to make sure that USDA and FDA are working together to make sure that this is safe. This is not a ban. This is just a moratorium. It's a 5-year. We appreciate that we do not ask for any amendments. We like the bill in its current form. 5 years, if 5 years is not enough, you can revisit it in 2031 and add another 5 years or 3 years or whatever you think you may need there. But this is just a safety thing. Let's make sure that science and technology are meeting labeling requirements and all of those types of things that we currently require for meat. So we urge you passage of this bill and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you. For the proponent testimony to Senate Bill 124. Welcome, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Lucy McBride of Spearfish, South Dakota, representing myself and Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Just a big me too as a consumer of the wonderful egg products, as well as some of my own that I raise. I just appreciate the safeguards that are put in place by what's been discussed prior. And I guess I'll just go home feeling like I've got a lot of people looking out to make sure that we're taking some time to look at this new product before we put it on the market and people like myself not knowing what I'm eating. So appreciate all this work. Hope it does pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. Further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 124. If not, I think we have one online. Will Coggin. Will, am I saying that right, sir? Will Coggin, are you there? Cogan?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Can you please
Thank
introduce
you, Mr.
yourself
Chair.
and give us your testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Will Coggin. I'm the research director and a registered lobbyist for the Center for the Environment and Welfare in Arlington, Virginia, which is a research and advocacy organization. We're in support of Senate Bill 124. We believe it's a balanced step to protect consumer health. And lab-grown meat is an experimental food product, and we really need more time for science to catch up and fully understand this product and its implications for health and food safety. So to provide a little bit more substance for that and for the committee's understanding, 2 weeks ago, there was a study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, which found that lab-grown meat caused a different allergic reaction in the human body than natural meat. In fact, it was a more intensive allergic reaction. So one of the authors of this study said, quote, "This study demonstrates that meat grown from cells can change in ways that matter for food allergies. Our results show why food safety assessments for cultivated meat or lab-grown meat need to look carefully at allergy-related proteins rather than assuming they behave the same as those in conventional meat, unquote. So, just I wanted to underscore that this shows there's a lot we still don't understand about lab-grown meat and its effects on the human body. This stuff is made by putting animal cells in a bioreactor, which is like a tank you would find at a brewery. They add a growth serum to it. As Senator Voida testified, the growth serum changes from company to company, and it's considered a trade secret for each company. So, we need more study to understand the effects of do different growth serums result in a different end product? How does that affect human health? Many companies use cells that have been immortalized, meaning they grow and grow and grow in perpetuity. This was developed for medical research purposes, but not for human food. So, again, lab-grown meat, broadly speaking, we have the safest food system in the world, absolutely. But lab-grown meat is very much a unique case here where this is an experimental food. So a 5-year moratorium will give time for science to catch up to better understand this product. And so just to understand and protect consumer safety and consumer health, this is a good bill, and we encourage the committee to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 124. Seeing none. And none, no more online, Tristan? All right, we're going to go to opponent testimony. We're looking for any opponent testimony to Senate Bill 124. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move into committee questions. Any committee questions? Representative Gosh. Ms. Runyon, if you don't mind getting back in the hot seat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the biggest question I have is in the past, you have opposed a moratorium. What has changed?
Go ahead, reintroduce yourself and answer the question if you can, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Tara Runyon, South Dakota Cattlemen's Association. This is part of the legislative process, part of compromise. We have been opposed to the moratoriums largely, and the bans in some of the other bills, largely for a free market perspective, as well as the potential impact on food safety. So our concern has been less about ensuring market access to these products, getting them into the market. Our concern has largely been making sure that there's not retaliatory legislation in other states that similarly blocks the good things that we raise here in South Dakota. We didn't like that roadmap. Take cell-cultured protein out of this bill and replace it with anything, and now you've got a problem. And so, in the past, we've opposed that sort of structure because of that concern, and now we've come to this compromise. It's temporary, it's shorter. We don't think that there is as much concern for that retaliatory legislation or market access problems, potential costly litigation to the state. So we're comfortable coming to this place where we can support this as it is and alleviate some of those big concerns. But like I mentioned in my testimony this morning, we still want to be cautious in the way that we talk about food safety and some of the other impacts of the issue.
State your question.
I guess to follow up to that, and not necessarily comparing it to the ban, but rather moratoriums in years past. There have been bills in front of the Ag Committee. You guys have opposed them much and very much like this one. What's changed?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Again, I think it's just where we are this particular year. Sometimes parties have to come together and give a little bit. When everybody leaves the negotiation table a little bit unhappy, sometimes that means you've come to a good place. And given the entire landscape of these discussions that we've had, this was a place this particular year where we're comfortable landing.
You good? Representative Ismay has a question. State your question, please. Who's this for?
This is for the
Ms. Runyon? Okay. State your question.
You stated that the cattlemen's or NCBA or somebody opposed this at the federal level. When was that, and how did you oppose it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I believe it was, in 2018 was when some of these products were coming on board, and they were looking at what that regulatory structure looked like. These companies were seeking approval to manufacture them. I will state this was before my time with Cattlemen's, and so I can't speak to exactly what role South Dakota Cattlemen's played, but when there's opportunity to weigh in on federal regulations such as rules, we often provide comments. NCBA, we are in a state level affiliate of NCBA, their lobbyists work on some of those issues as well. And so I think the initial concern was the preference would be that these products don't come to market. The compromise was if FDA said they were coming to market, they wanted to make sure that the regulatory structure was beyond just as an experimental product, but as part of the food safety system. And so that's when it's my understanding that the request was made to have not only FDA regulation of those components, but also USDA regulation of the harvesting and the labeling and all those other things. But that was before my time, so I can't speak with a lot of specificity.
You good? State your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you get me the information on exactly what their statement was? And, I mean, just kind of a background on what they opposed and, you know, the structure of what you guys did.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I can absolutely look into that. I can get you those things. Obviously, the one piece of information that is readily available is that agreement between USDA, FSIS, and FDA that they came to in 2018 that lays out that joint regulatory structure. That's available in lots of places, but I can certainly reach out to NCBA as well as look through our archives and find you that information. Happy to do that.
Okay, you good? All right. Any more questions from the committee? You two look so lonely down there. Any other questions? Okay, then we're going to close the public testimony and questions, and we're going to move into committee discussion and or action. Representative Schubeck.
I move due pass.
Second. Okay, it was moved by Representative Schubeck and seconded by Representative Van Dypen. Due pass on Senate Bill 124. Is there any comment on your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think this is a win that we should take. It's a compromise. Many of us in this room voted for the outright ban, and we're looking for some way to protect consumers ultimately. And one thing I do know about biology is anytime you're trying to fight nature, it doesn't end up well. And so anything that's unnatural, I would bet money that it will play out over time that this is not a good product. So we should just take the 5 years, and hopefully some of us will still be on this committee in 5 years, and we can slap another 5 years on it if we have to. And so this is the solution I'm going with. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll watch you from home. Any other comments on the motion due pass? Okay. Oh, Representative Gosh.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm a little disheartened by how the whole process went down, and I think I feel like I need to say something about that. We talk about Texas and afraid of litigation, therefore we're going to do away with the ban, but we're going to go with a 5-year. Well, Texas changed theirs to a 2-year, they're still getting sued. So 5-year, 10-year, perpetual, whatever. At the end of the day, I don't represent California, don't care what they think, to be truthful with you. I do care what South Dakotans think, and I think it was pretty loud when the original bill was vetoed. So I probably will support this bill here today, but it isn't enough, and we need to do better. So.
Okay, further comments from the committee. Representative Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as a producer, I thank everybody in the room and listening for their work to come to a compromise. And it is hard. You can tell we're getting pulled from both directions on this issue. You know, I do have concerns about what other states think, not specifically about this fake product or, you know, cell cultured, whatever. But, you know, we got states that are banning the products we make in South Dakota right now. Not make them, we grow them. Our pork is banned in certain ways in California and Massachusetts right now. We are actively fighting those bans because we want to be able to sell our products across the country and across the world. We do raise our animals right, and they are safe and they are nutritious. And so we are fighting on one hand. This is a big picture issue, guys. We are fighting bans in some areas, so we have to be cautious that we don't do tit for tat and hurt ourselves, cut off our nose to spite our face, so to speak. So I'm going to support this motion, but we do have to remember, I mean, I sat with high-ranking officials on the House Ag Committee last week talking about banning Prop 12 and similar things in the next Farm Bill. I mean, we are working as an industry to protect our industry in lots of ways. This is one of them, and I agree. I hope in the next 5 years that the information comes out that FDA does ban this, if it is what I've read in some of the articles from like the veterinarian that wrote that article after he testified. I mean, if that's all true, it seems like a pretty obvious thing that they should ban it. So hopefully this gives us time, and I agree. I hope we do not get sued in the meantime for costs that we don't want to pay. So I will support the motion, but I just want to share that perspective.
Thank you. Representative Ismay.
Bring it.
Okay, further comment from the committee. Last chance, and then the chair is going to weigh in. All right, here we go. Yes, I'm glad a deal was struck. I'm very disappointed that the last bill got vetoed. I'm strongly on record with banning this stuff. Our state depends on agriculture, and we don't need competition, bad competition like that. But I would just challenge all of you that will be here in 5 years, out in the crowd, if you're on here, remember, this means somebody has to pick up the ball in 5 years. Otherwise, this just happens. It ain't going to be me, but hopefully it's some of you. But remember, there's a challenge out there in 5 years to relook at this. It's going to take someone to pick it up and say we're going to look at it. So with that, we have a motion to do pass. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Representative Goodwin, excused. Hunt?
Aye.
Ismay?
Aye.
Ladner?
Aye.
May, excused. Knowles?
Aye.
Peterson?
Aye.
Rice?
Aye.
Schubeck?
Aye.
Van Dypen?
Aye.
Whitman, excused. Gosh?
No.
Overwig?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, we have 9 yeas, 1 nay, and 3 excused.
Okay, receiving the amount of votes that needed. Senate Bill 124 will go to the floor with a do pass recommendation. Okay, we're going to move on to our last bill today, Senate Bill 39, revised provisions relating to industrial hemp. Is there any proponent testimony? Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brian Walsh, Department of Ag and Natural Resources. Appreciate you letting me back clean up here. I'm your last bill, I understand. So
we always like to finish out the year with a good old hemp bill.
Right. I do understand that there's an amendment that has been posted. I don't know if we want to move that amendment at this time or not.
Yes, if they would like to, if you'd like to move the amendment, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I would move 39B.
Okay. It has been moved by Representative Gosh, seconded by Representative Knowles to move Senate Bill 39 Amendment B. Is there any discussion on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just try to keep it brief. If you guys look at the amendment, there's some language that's crossed out, added in, a lot of renumbering, but the industries and the agencies got together, and this is something that they put forward, so I would urge us to put the amendment on the bill, and we'll talk about the bill as is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other discussion on moving the amendment? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are amended. Go ahead, sir.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian Walsh, Department of Ag and Natural Resources, here today to ask for your support of Senate Bill 39 as amended. So what does this bill do? It returns DANR's regulatory authority over industrial hemp growers to USDA while keeping the guardrails in place for transportation that we think are important for South Dakota. It aligns South Dakota with other Midwest states like Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Wisconsin who rely on USDA to implement their industrial hemp program. Nebraska and Wisconsin recently returned their programs to USDA over the past year. We've had some discussions with them, and that's been a successful process. As has been noted, there are some sections in the chapter that remain in place. We worked with DPS, and we've had discussions with industry about those, and we think that they are at a place where they need to be to maintain DPS's regulatory authorities. Why is this change needed? The state hemp program is not financially sustainable for the limited number of licensed growers and processors that we have. In 2025, there were 17 growers, 5 processors, and about 1,100 acres harvested. DNR requires a minimum of 2 FTE to maintain this program. The license fees cover about 11% of the cost. The remaining is made up with general funds. There are some regulatory and fiscal benefits to taking this approach. Actually reduces the regulatory burden on the hemp growers and processors. The THC testing does remain in place for those growers, so that's important. USDA does not charge a license fee for hemp producers like we do, and it saves taxpayer dollars by reducing FTE and approximately $200,000 a year in general funds that we can give back to the system. It is important to note that we want there to be a smooth transition for growers. So we don't want to impact them during the 2026 growing season. So with that in mind, the bill has a delayed effective date of January 1, 2027. Again, to ensure there's no disruption and provide time for our producers to adjust to the USDA license process. So in summary, it makes South Dakota consistent with other Midwest states on a regulatory level. It shrinks our government and saves some general funds without reducing safeguards. With that in mind, we would ask you to support Senate Bill 39 as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 39. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. Katie Sieverding with the South Dakota Industrial Hemp Association. Just want to say we are in support of Senate Bill 39 as amended, with the caveat that we have had conversations with DPS on the transportation piece. And we will continue to work on that as the federal law changes. So there's some documentation requirements right now in our state statute if you're driving through for testing results. The federal government is looking at separating the grain and fiber type hemp from the cannabinoid type hemp, and maybe looking at not having testing results for the fiber and grain hemp that have virtually no THC, very, very much less than the 0.3% that is required to be considered industrial hemp. So if those changes go in effect at the federal level, DPS has said they'll work with us on not having that requirement for those types of varieties and those types of, or for the grain and fiber type of things. So with that, I appreciate the amendment and the department working with us and would ask for your support. Thanks.
Thank you. Further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 39. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Christy Turman. I am Deputy Secretary for the Department of Public Safety. Just here to lend our support to Senate Bill 39, and we appreciate the Department of Ag and Natural Resources for including us in the first place in their bill. So we would just ask for your support.
Thank you. Ms. Thurman, could you remember to sign in? They said, did you thank you so much. Okay, further proponent testimony to Senate Bill 39. Seeing none online, then let's go to opponent testimony. Is there any opponent testimony to Senate Bill 39? Okay, then we will move into questions from the committee. Any questions from the committee? Representative Ismay.
My question's for Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Walsh, there you go. All right, state your question.
Thank you, Chair. I still don't understand who's going to be inspecting the hemp industry in South Dakota, I guess.
You want to give that a try, reintroduce yourself, and give that answer?
You bet, Mr. Chair. Brian Walsh, Department of Ag and Natural Resources. So that burden would shift to USDA as part of their regulatory program for the licensed growers.
Follow-up question?
Yeah. So is there one in South Dakota? An inspector?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I don't know that answer for sure. Iowa, Nebraska are all taking this approach. There are inspectors in the region, but I don't know for certain if there is one located in South Dakota.
Okay, one more.
Go ahead, follow up. Go ahead, state your question.
So if we're going to just completely drop out of the inspection process, there's not going to be anybody inspecting?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, yeah, Brian Walsh, Department of Ag, the inspection, USDA still has the THC sampling requirements that South Dakota had as we implement the program. It'll just be done at the federal level.
Okay.
Are you good? Okay. Any more questions from the committee? Representative Rice?
I'm sorry, Brian. Can you go back?
Go ahead, state your question.
Mr. Chair. You said that you would send $200,000 back to the general fund. How much is our state funding this hemp project?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, so yeah, we have 2 employed FTE, and the cost of operating those 2 FTE is $200,000.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Stay there unless someone else has a question. Okay, I want to ask you about the 2 FTEs. Now, are you saying that we have 2 full-time FTEs doing it, or the time of 2 full-time employees?
Mr. Chair, there are 2 full-time employees implementing the program right now.
Okay. Can you give us a little bit of an idea day-to-day what their workload is and what they do?
Mr. Chair, sure. They're responsible for the licensing of the processors and growers, so they have to process those licenses. So each year the license have to be re-upped, if you will. So they process those licenses, confirm background checks, do those things, and then they are in the field as well when it's harvest time and they're doing that sampling and inspection.
Thank you. Further questions? Then Ms. Thurman, I have one for you, please. Thinking you're the right person to answer this question. I didn't want to put Mr. Walsh on too much of a hot seat.
I'll do my best.
So some years back when we started this, we implemented, we gave the FTEs, we gave testing equipment, we gave blah, blah, blah money. Are those things still needed now that we're going to the federal level, or will there be some money be reverted back to the general fund of the state?
Mr. Chair, that part is not.
Reintroduce yourself, please.
I'm sorry,
and then ask.
Christy Turman, Deputy Secretary for the Department of Public Safety. The transportation statutes are actually not in the federal hemp plan. So whatever we were given a few years ago, we will still be utilizing at our ports and as we inspect those trucks that come through.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So the Highway Patrol, if they're on their normal day of business, they see a truck or whatever, the DOT, they pull them over. They also can do the testing. They also can enforce. And just because we're going to the federal, we still have some kind of strength as a state, right, on law.
Mr. Chair, they can take the samples in the field at the ports and then they send them in to be tested. They don't have a field test, so to speak, that will tell them like right there that it's full-fledged marijuana or it's way below the 0.3%. They have that equipment to take the sample, but it's not a field test, so to speak, that will give them an answer right away.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question. Do you have knowledge of, in the past, the history, how many trucks have the ports? How many have we stopped and they've been out of compliance that we had to levy a fine in the last, say, 2-3 years?
Mr. Chair, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head.
I didn't expect you to. I was just hoping you did.
Okay.
Further questions? Representative Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a little unorthodox, but there was a legislator that was very knowledgeable about this, and he's in the room. If I could pull up Mr. Lesmeister.
It's up to him if he wants to come up. I just don't know if he's smart enough to sign into that computer to back anymore. But we'll help you with that when you're done.
I guess.
Introduce yourself or go state your question.
Mr. Chair, if we could, just about the expenses and everything we're trying to do here, just could you elaborate a little bit on that? What are we doing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Orrin Lesmeister, representing myself now. We'll back up I guess I'm going to try to answer your question, sir. We'll back up. I'm going to presume roughly 10 years ago when this all started, and I was involved with it along with Representative May, who's out of the room right now. When this deal got done finally, I think what you're asking is there was multiple highway patrolman slots opened up, lab tech slots. Is this okay? There's a liquid chrome machine that was paid for and maintenanced. That's all baked into the budget, along with programmers under the Department of Ag and Natural Resources now. So when that was all said and done, that there was a very large budget that the state was affording at the time. We were hoping, at some point it would become somewhat cost efficient. We knew it would never become totally based on, the licensing and everything else, but that was where the licensing requirements came in, the different levels of licensing, the $250 to $1,000 to whatever, different entities had to pay. You had to pay your own background checks and different things like that. So does that answer your question, Representative Gosh?
Yep, you're good. Okay, thank you for helping out.
There was a very large budget put in place to start this.
Thanks for helping out. See if
Yes.
you can sign it in the back. If you can't, Katie will help you. Okay, other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we are going to move into committee discussion and or action.
Mr. Chair,
Representative Gosh.
move to pass.
Second.
It has been moved by Representative Gosh, seconded by Representative Knowles to do pass on Senate Bill 39. Discussion on your motion. Yeah, as amended, sure. Representative Schubeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we only had 3,900 acres of industrial hemp last year. So if you do the math, those FTEs are costing us roughly $50 an acre to maintain. So I think this is a good bill, and I'm going to support it.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion, or further, by Representative Dypen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was listening to the last testimony, and it came up that we bought all these expensive pieces of machinery to test stuff. By passing this and referring it to the USDA, that's equipment that we will not have to purchase in the future, this testing equipment. It'll be reverted back to the federal government. DPS is still going to have their troopers out there doing what they do at the ports, testing everything. The equipment they have is what they need on a daily basis. It's nothing that's extraordinary. I think this is just going to save us money down the road by transferring it back to USDA, relieving the pressure on the state of South Dakota. So I will support this motion.
Okay, further comment on the motion to do pass? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to do pass 39B as amended. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, receiving the amount of votes it needed, Senate Bill 39 will go to the House floor with a do pass recommendation as amended. Okay, well, there we have it. We have finished our bills, committee. I want to thank you all. We are going to meet here next Tuesday, March 10, and we'll start at 8:30. We have the Leopold winners coming in, and they're going to serve us breakfast, I believe. And so with that, I just wanted to say that I think I've been on this Ag Committee 7 years, and this is probably the best committee I have served with. We did a great job. Not bragging, I'm bragging about you, but we did a great job. And, I think we protected Ag pretty good here this year in South Dakota. So we don't know what the future is going to hold for all of us, but, if we see each other next year, we see each other next year. But I just wanted to say thank you. You did a great job. I'll see you on Tuesday. Need a motion to dismiss.
Second.
Been moved by Gosh, seconded by Representative Knowles that we adjourn. All those in favor will say aye. Opposed? No. We are adjourned.
From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Finals.